Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of the Healing Brothers Presents. It is time to deal with the pain. I am one of your co-hosts, Brandon Jones, and I'm with the legendary Sam Simmons, Uncle Big in the flesh. How are you doing today, Sam?
You just want to come up with a new something every week, don't you?
I try, man. I'm getting ready for that my next career. I think it's in radio. I think that I can make the money like what's his name? Joe Madison. What's his name? What's the black dude's name? Been on the radio forever.
You mean out of DC?
I think he's in DC.
Joe Madison, I think he's in DC.
Tom Joyner, he's been on there too.
Tom Joyner is what we would call a radio, kind of a radio disc jockey.
Yeah, I ain't trying to spin no records. I'm just trying to get on there. I want a big, fat, serious radio contract where I can just hop on the mic and do my thing for an hour or two and go home happy.
Oh, okay. So that means you got to be a little bit more controversial.
Oh, don't worry. I got the controversy. I just keep it to myself.
Yeah, see, I was getting ready to say that. See, people don't know that. See, they think you the nice one.
I am nice, but I just have a low bandwidth for nonsense, and I think that there's a lot of nonsense that happens. So I just tend not to say anything. I learned that very early. Sometimes the best thing to say is nothing.
Yeah, well, okay, okay.
But how are you? What's going on?
I'm good. You know, went out and had dinner last night and was all good. You know, nothing to complain about. You know, sun's out. They tell me it's gonna get warmer. You know, I don't have to go many places too often, so you know, I ain't got to be bothered with that gas stuff out there.
Oh yeah,
You know,
man. Got a little biting. What,
okay.
man? Just saying. This is where we're at.
Yeah, well, yeah, I hear you. So, what do we have on track for today?
So today's topic, we're going to get into how the trauma has seeped into the schools. I mean, let me back up. The trauma's been there for a while, but we're starting to see behaviors escalate beyond what they've been, I would say, probably over the last 15 years. And we're seeing more intense things happens in the schools. And something that you always talk about is like the babies are always watching. And I think the babies have watched for so long that they're now participating and they are in the thick of it. And there were 3 news clips that happened since the last show we had that I sent over to you. We want to play some of those. One of them involved, 2 of them involve middle school students, and one involves a 5-year-old. And it's like the levels of aggression and trauma that are showing up for these young folks is pretty severe. So I want to get your take on it. What do you think's happening? What is going on? What, these are little kids. These are not high schoolers we're talking about. We're talking about, 14 and unders. What's happening? So that's on the docket for today. Any leading words before we play any of these clips? Any thoughts on youth today and how we've manifested to where we're at in the trauma?
Well, I because I'm old and I remember the old people. You know, these kids today, I don't know what's wrong with them. You know, that's always been the thing. But I think you hit it. I mean, they're just acting out, imitating behavior that they've been exposed to, by older folks, by adults. And it's like for some, it's like not knowing how to be in public or how to be in other environments other than the kind of toxic environments they grow up in, right? And so it goes back to they're just modeling what they see, or they're modeling what they think they're supposed to do according to, if they're not getting any direction from the environment um, the what they see on all the different platforms they're on, right? You know, you know, being you know easily excited, easily triggered, and they're just acting it out. You know.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty wild right now, man. I mean, it's all the crazy thing I think too is that a lot of it's on film. And I think some of the stuff that we just never was exposed to is now being recorded, but some of this stuff is just taken to another level as well. So it's pretty interesting. You want to roll the clips?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. Let's start with the middle schooler down in DeSoto. So let me pull that up now. So I'm not even going to I'm not even gonna tee it up. I'm just gonna let it roll. Just let it roll and get your perspective from this. So here we go. DeSoto County. Uh-oh. There we go. Let it roll.
Some major changes are coming after students and a substitute teacher are all caught on camera throwing chairs at each other in a North Texas classroom. Take a look. This happened at DeSoto West Middle School yesterday. Because of the incident you see here, DeSoto ISD is canceling classes tomorrow. Teachers are still going to be coming in. They're required to come in and discuss changes maybe to improve safety on campus. Some of the changes going into effect already includes more hallway monitoring, and students will now not be allowed to use their cell phones or headphones during the day. DeSoto ISD says the incident you see here is under review. All parties will be held accountable.
So what do you think about our first clip here, Sam?
Well,
DeSoto,
I
Texas.
mean, it's watching the clip. The only thing is I see a teacher throwing the if you go by the clip, you see the first chair or table or whatever being thrown is by a teacher, you know, and the understanding is that it wasn't started by the teacher, but what are you supposed to I mean, it's just nuts all the way around, right? You got
Yeah.
students and teachers throwing chairs and that kind of stuff in the room. I mean, it's like, what kind of chaos is that, right?
That's happening in schools every day all over the country, man.
I mean, it's like
Chaos.
yeah. I mean, it's nuts, and you know, and then it gets videotaped, and then it gets people watch it, and it gets spread around, and folks get entertained by that, but the other thing that was interesting is they said that they was going to have rules where folks couldn't have their phones and all these other
Yeah.
things
Mm-hmm.
on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a problem too. I mean, the thing is, you got all these extra, distractions and that kind of stuff, and how do you manage a classroom that way, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and some people will look at that. Well, that's just a teacher who don't know how to manage their class, right? Well, that was a male teacher, right? We always want to talk about we
Mm-hmm.
want male teachers in the
Yep.
classroom and
Yep.
black male teachers in the classroom, and um and you'd had that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and then so what do you do? What does a kid do? Like my grandkids who are in the class trying to get an education in that class. What do you do with your child?
Right.
And what we're finding here, because here in Minnesota we have a teacher strike going on,
Yep.
and I in investigating some of that for my radio show, they were talking about you always talk about white flight, from inner city schools and that kind of stuff, but they were talking about black flight, where
Mm-hmm.
black parents are leaving these schools and sending their kids to other schools too. And we know that not everybody's able to do that, but there's here in
The ones
Minnesota, there are a
who
few more
can. Yeah.
options, even if you don't have a lot of money to go to a different kind of school or
Right.
or a charter school. Because there's one over here by my house that almost all of my nieces and nephews are going to on my wife's side of the family, and they're doing well. You know, the church is ran. There's a church that runs the school, and it's primarily kids of color, a lot of black kids, and the kids are doing pretty well in those schools, right? And we're not hearing a lot of this kind of stuff going on there. So, you know, it's just been difficult, I think, in terms of some of the schools, especially some of more of the, you know, what we would call the inner city schools and that kind of thing, in terms of how do you manage those? Because, you know, we had the problem for a long time where you know, the issue around black boys being suspended or black children being suspended from schools, and we're trying to deal with that. Had that extreme where people scared of black kids, and then we came down to the fact that, you know, zero suspensions, but there's always that middle. How do you manage zero suspensions that you don't harm the kids who are there to get an education?
Right. And so there's a few things. That news clip didn't show the full video. There's more on the front end and more on the back end from what they showed. On the front end, you see the clear throw of the chair from the student. And the other thing that people didn't realize, that was a female student that hit the teacher with the chair. That was a young female student. Now, on the back end that we didn't get from the film or from the clip, there were students in that classroom that were trying to do their work. And you see there, and it's funny because one of the kids who was recording was one of those kids, and you hear them kind of talking, and one of the kids just like, man, I just want to get this stuff done. Like, what is going on? Like, there's like a group of like 3 kids, one's filming, 2 of them are sitting there. They have like the tool, their, you know, folders and pens out and all that. So they were actually trying to get something done. You hear all the kids screaming. They don't know what's going on. The teacher completely loses it. He's probably doing behavioral, you know, rallying the, you know, trying to get the cattle all together all day. And he's dealing with behavioral issues and just lost his mind, throws a chair back at the kids. At the tail end also of the video, you see him sitting there, he's gushing blood because he actually did get hit with the chair. So it's chaotic all over. But again, I think this gives an insight to what some of our educators are dealing with on a consistent basis. It's a lot of behavioral management that is just crazy. I mean, we should never see that level of engagement between any adult and child. But we're starting to notice that a lot more of this is happening where teachers are losing it. I mean, you sent me a clip too, which we can show as well, with the coach down in Georgia who hemmed up the student who had the gun in their backpack, and it was a girl there too.
Right.
Man.
Or there was a clip, and I don't have them ready at this particular time. Or did you send me the clip where the junior high school students was chasing the high school coach?
Yeah, I'm gonna put that one up next. You want to check it out?
Yeah,
let's do it. Yeah. Now this one's crazy. Well, I'll wait for my commentary once we show the clip. This one's interesting too.
Camera moments topping the rundown with a disturbing attack outside of a high school here in Houston. A coach from Langham High School appears to be chased by a group of students who are then swinging at him. Our Matthew Seedorf live outside of that high school tonight. Matthew, you've looked into what was going on and how the coach is doing.
Yeah, just so disturbing. Thankfully, it sounds like that coach is going to be okay, but a lot of parents and students can't believe this happened. Disturbing video of an attack outside Houston's Langham Creek High School. A student sharing his video with us, taken as middle school students chase down a high school baseball coach, throwing punches. Then the coach falls to the ground.
I was surprised when nobody did anything, especially when I found out it was just a bunch of middle schoolers.
Almost all the students at Langham Creek High have now seen this video, many talking about the brutal ambush.
I heard that there were kids doing donuts and stuff, causing a ruckus with their dirt bikes, and the coach was not happy with it, so he asked them politely to stop doing that. The kids were not having it. They decided to jump them.
They should be ashamed of themselves. They need to be in jail behind bars. I mean, that's horrible.
Skyfox above the high school Friday afternoon. Several parents in line to pick up their children early.
What the?
After the attack, someone posted to social media threatening the possibility of a school shooting.
I was shocked. I kind of did not want to go to school today, and I was really trying to see if I could go home.
School principal sent this letter home to parents, calling the ambush extremely unacceptable, adding several Oregon middle school students were identified and taken into custody. Campus police are investigating the threatening social media post. The school principal said they increased security today, definitely noticeable outside the school. Just a scary day for many students. Reporting live on the Northwest Side tonight, Matthew Seedorf, Fox 26 News.
Your thoughts on this clip, sir?
Well, so if
There's one
now
more.
let me see
There's
if I
one
got
more.
this right. That was a high school baseball coach, right?
High school baseball coach who's seen kids doing donuts, teenagers doing donuts in the parking lot.
Right.
You know what donuts are? Where you spin your car around in circles.
I thought it was something that you eat. Yeah,
No.
okay.
I'm just saying for folks who don't know what donuts are. The coach says, hey, he sees these kids. He's doing what we say we want adults to do when they see kids doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. He intervenes. Him intervening leads to him being chased. It looked like for his life. He was running like like Kunta was running at the beginning of of Roots, man. Remember that first scene of Roots? You see OJ and Kunta running through the prairie. That's what he looked like. He was gone. And what ended up happening? They got him. 5 middle school. Now these kids don't even go to the high school. They're in middle school, and they chase down this guy and beat him up. And then they threatened to shoot up the school when the video was posted. So the school had to respond and put down these safety measures. That's why you've seen those parents lining up to pick their kids up from school because they were under threat of being shot up. Your
Well,
thoughts?
I mean, you're the youth expert. You know, I'm just an old black man, but you're a youth expert. What do you think, youth expert?
I think that a lot of these young kids have gotten to a place of hopelessness where they don't feel like nobody gives a damn about them. And when young people don't feel like nobody cares, they're willing to do whatever. And right now, the popular things to do for young people, because this is what their role models do, are donuts and Hellcats. So all these sports cars, these, the Hellcats, the Chargers, the Challengers, the Corvettes. Those are the cars that they want. Those Dodges, all those cars to do the donuts. They want to pop Percocets. They want to be super gremlins. They want to have sex and try to get as much money. They want to start scamming and get as much money that they can get. That's who their role models are doing. They're getting tattoos all over their faces. They're growing their hair out as crazy as they want it to look. And they're out here. They're busting slack. If you don't know what that means, they let them pants hang low. And that's what they're doing.
Okay.
And if you're an adult who says don't do any of that or you intervene, there is no more respecting the elders. That's been gone, by the way. But you're not going to tell me not to do something. Telling me not to do something makes me want to do it even more. And if you intervene in that, I'm going to do something about it. And that's what you're seeing. And you're seeing this with younger kids. That's the key for me, is how young these kids are. And for them to already have that level of disconnection, what ends up happening is that leads to a lot of dangerous stuff. These kids are like 13, 14 years old, and they have the mentality, the group mentality to attack an adult. And they do it in broad daylight, by the way.
Right.
Like that's where we're at. So you call me a youth expert if you want to. That's the reality of what's going on. Now, how would I approach those youth? I don't know. Because by the time a situation like that, they're coming to me through probation. So they are required to come to me. But if it was just me, like if I was out there and the coach, I probably would have told the coach, let them just do that or call the police, let the police handle it. Because what are you going to do?
But there you go. There's the catch-22, right?
Yep.
Especially over the last
2
18
years.
months, 2 years, is this controversy or this understanding of how do around policing, right? And so you're saying your advice to the coach would be don't say anything, right? And yeah, don't say anything and just call the police. Well, that is considered taboo in some people's eyes too, right? And so the other option some people would say is to involve the community, have more community volunteers, and that was a big thing. Uh, uh, they did a big piece on that in one of the schools in one of the cities where they involved this group of Black fathers who were going up to the school every day, at least initially, and how that changed the attitude of students having this male presence that was there instead of the police presence. And the thing is that's fine, but what do you do when you don't have either one, right? And I do agree that when we have you know having police in the schools um did become a problem, okay? And but again, just like what we're seeing now, if you're filming everything, how big of a problem it's been, how long it's been a problem, is it an isolated case of a problem? But again, uh there's many of these videos, right? And they're not in the same locations, although those two we showed were both in Texas, I think, for the most part. But like you said, and you're closer to this than I'm, this is going on all around the city. And I've had stories around here locally as well in the schools. So how do you balance that enough? How do you work with that for the kids who are coming to school to get their education or trying to do the right thing? How do they not end up losing when you got to spend so much time trying to correct behaviors that that you in some cases might be a little bit too late uh to correct for some folks, right? And so it's definitely a dilemma, but that don't mean you shouldn't do anything, right? And and as I have said recently, there's a lot of tough decisions that both politicians and community and family need to start uh, making some real difficult choices, some real challenges to what we historically would call the culturally appropriate way,
Right.
right? And so what that a culturally appropriate way only will work if certain things are in place, like you said, respect for authority,
Yeah.
like the ability to have a conversation with your kids, uh,
Right.
um, um, like the way of having enough appropriate role models to show them how to be, or also how do we early address the issues around showing kids that we care,
Right.
right? So that they can emulate that, you know. And how do we do that in this new age, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think the new age caught up with us so fast with with all the video, with the different exposure to different information, uh all the technology, and somewhere along the line, including all the levels of trauma that different communities are experiencing, the trauma that people were experiencing in the past, all done come to a head, and making the adjustments, the hardcore adjustments, or the difficult adjustments. Probably shouldn't be say hardcore, but difficult adjustments we might have to make that we probably haven't fully took the time to really think through,
Right.
right?
They are
So
hardcore. But
yeah,
you said it right the first time. these are hardcore adjustments because it forces us to be honest about where the culture currently is. We can't have culturally relevant or sensitive practices and approaches to stuff, and we're using culture from 1965. Like, we need to see what's going on today. Like, like this is a different culture. These young, I mean, we can be as Afrocentric as we want to with our cultural approaches, but they need to match the current climate of what's going on. I got a video queued up. It's real quick. I want to show you something. This is something that happens in a lot of schools. You talk about we don't need resource officers. Here's an example of what happens when you have them, and when they try to do their jobs. But this is what's going on. A lot of kids are in this space. Now, go ahead, pull up the clip for a second. Okay. Yep, go ahead. Now, this clip is, you're going to see a typical engagement. You see a male student, this is a high school, and a female student, and they're just playing around like a lot of kids do. If you walk into any public high school, hell, any high school really, you're going to see this level of engagement. You're going to see students goofing around, having fun, right? Now, watch this. Boom. You know what that is? It just fell there. That's what we call.
Start it over.
Okay. All right. I'll let it play out and then I'll slow it down next time. And they're doing what they need to do, right? They're trying to stop the student. Student's gone. And he just walks out the building. Now, let me back that up. He dropped it. He dropped his weapon with the extendo clip, and he's probably got a switch on that too. That's a 30-round clip. Okay. This is he's at school. Backpack on, gun falls out his backpack. Picks it up, heads right out the door. And they're doing harm reduction, right? They're not roughing him up. They're trying to talk to him. They can't stop him though. But this is what happens in school. We need those resource officers. They gotta let him go. Because if they hem him up, if they say, hey, stop, we got to get that gun out your backpack, or they do any type of takedown on them, what's gonna happen? Protest. Probably both of these people gonna lose their job in the name of safety.
Yeah, well, there's probably some people who would sit there and say you're exaggerating, Brandon. You're exaggerating.
Okay, and that 30-round clip, that 30-round clip could do a lot of damage.
I think another thing about that is those were kids being kids.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They're still
there
kids.
were kids being kids with a 30-round clip in their pocket.
He had it in his backpack. It fell out of his backpack because it's on that girl's back, and it just falls out. Yeah,
and luckily for the most part, I guess he had the safety on, because if that sucker
it's the switch. Yeah, because you got to hold the trigger with the switch in order for it to go off. Yeah. So he's You're lucky. You're right. He's lucky that it didn't just backfire and let out, because that could have been bad for a lot of anybody in that vicinity.
And then we got the issue that the child went out the door with the gun out into the community.
Yes, but they can't. That's what I'm saying. What has happened is we've gotten so progressive in having those in-school officers. They can't do anything. So what they did was the appropriate thing. They tried to stop. They had two adults. They did the They didn't pin him in, but they had one in the back, one in the front. But that's all they could do. When he made that little swim move around them, they can't do anything else after that. He's out the door. He's gone.
Yeah, but the thing is they still was doing their job, because their job is to protect the school. Once he hit the door, it ain't theirs no more.
Oh man, I don't like that part, but I get it.
No, I mean, I'm just saying that if I'm doing my job, that was my job.
Yeah, school safe.
Right.
Damn. But man, like, this is scary to me. When I see stuff like this could have turned out really bad very quickly.
Yeah, and
they're just being kids.
Yeah, kids being kids. You know that
with guns.
and kids being kids, and but you got a 30-round gun in the mix of it. You know,
Man.
because again, that's always historically always been, especially when you come to boys being boys. You know, like when they would get into a fist fight or that kind of thing. Kind of joking around. All those kind of pieces. But now you have these added factors in there, right? These other danger factors, and so, like you said, when you're still approaching things as you would in the 1960s, and in some cases it didn't work there either, depending on what school you was at. Um, um, and right now, because we have difficulty with our responses. Our responses are either all or nothing, which is a trauma response, and we can't find the middle. Yeah, did we and have we had problems with resource officers in the schools? Absolutely.
Yes.
Who had attitudes like, look, I'm going to go work at this school with these animals. Folks literally saying that.
Yeah, that has happened.
Right.
And shouldn't happen. We shouldn't be tolerated.
And who are mentally can't handle dealing with kids. When you slamming kids because you didn't like the way they talked to you, or they didn't come to attention exactly when you wanted them to, right? Because you don't know how to manage or de-escalate certain things, right? So I understood the people's response to that, and the response that was very different. I mean, a lot of suburban schools did not have as many issues or concern about resource officers being in their schools as Black schools, but the mentalities were very different.
Yeah, the culture is different.
Yeah, and the other piece was that's the same thing about policing. The policing, the same culture you had within the community around policing showed up in the schools, right?
Bingo.
No compassion, accountability, right? It was all about we got to control these animals, and we know that there's a history around policing in America of about there's certain people need to be controlled and other people need to be kept safe, and that attitude has been part of policing for a long time, and we ran up against that over the last couple of years, and it's not like it didn't already exist, but when you do not deal with the issue early until it festers to a point where you can't take it no more, then you make these dramatic, drastic decisions, which is human nature.
Right.
But that all or nothing piece, there's people inside the community that you say you're trying to keep safe. They suffer from that as well.
Right.
Because I'm doing this piece coming up here pretty soon around old age and disability in the Black community, and it's like with my doing my research and this being old myself, okay, it's you think it's ugly for the kids. It's ugly for old folks, in terms of what am I supposed to do, and especially when I'm starting to see the data about age abuse or elder abuse. People ain't gonna like some of the information I got that's gonna come up, right? In terms of the data, right? The data ain't looking good when it comes to elder abuse in the community and that kind of stuff, right? And the losses of the safety that used to have to a certain degree for elders in our community, with the issue of respect, the issue of honoring age, and those kind of things, right? Ain't there. Right?
The culture has changed.
Right.
It has gotten. I'm just gonna say the culture has gotten worse. We have taken, I don't know if it's a step back, a step to the side, or what, but we didn't take a step forward. and anybody can get it at any given time, including the elders. We used to have a community where elders and young people used to be sacred, right? We don't touch women, we don't touch kids, we let elders walk by, you help them. That's gone. That is gone. I don't know what's going on. We have like, you always talk about, you use the quote, the village that hides the truth. I think it's the village that hides the truth will continue to suffer the pain or something. So
Right.
the village that hides the truth cannot expect to heal, but to pass on the pain is the
Right.
quote. And that pain has been like amplified. And we've hid the truth for so long that we're at this point of where the pain has just spread through, almost like COVID, and everybody has been infected with the pain. And now you're seeing the babies respond to the pain. Now you're
Yeah.
seeing the elders suffer from the pain. And our community, if we want to say community, is just like, it's almost non-existent. I mean, it's just like we just have survival units of people in collective space,
Right.
and everybody's trauma is just festering off of one another.
And the thing is people are thinking, and I can see why, that we're starting to evolve. We got more people going to therapy, right? We got more people talking about mental health. We got more people talking about trauma. Even though when I look at trauma and mental health, there's a certain amount of that I can separate, right? In terms
Right.
of depending on what you define as mental health. Sometimes just identifying something as a trauma could leave you in a better place, right? That happened, right? And people acknowledging and listening to what happened, you can do okay in some cases with that. It's this whole thing about it happened and everybody around you act like it don't happen. I think that causes a whole lot of mental health and depression and that kind of stuff. Is like, am I the only one who's seeing this stuff? Am I the only one who cares about what's going on? Right. And so even even with the idea that we're having these so-called conversations about trauma, we're still behind the curve because we allowed ourselves to come late to that party. And I understand why we came late, because how do you have an honest conversation about trauma when everything around you, to some degree, for some people more than others, it's been trauma? But we've been calling a lot of that culture. How do you deal with that? And that's why I'm saying it's going to take some major bravery and to really get on the other side of this, right? We're gonna have to do some things that are contrary to what we call culture, like holding folks within our own community accountable. But because like when we talk about elders and that kind of stuff, and I've seen it personally, where they're being ripped off by their grandkids or whatever, and they find out and they won't turn them in or that kind of stuff. Or if they start talking about turning them in, their own children to turn on them, that kind of stuff. Or because there was so much trauma when that elder was an adult, that you get folks like, well, you owed us anyway. And it's like, because we never did deal with the trauma, right? And because we still have those grudges and those old pieces that we were never ever able to deal with. The fact that we give grace and forgiveness to our perpetrators more than we do our own families. All of that is part of that trauma that is just coming big time to the surface.
Yeah.
And again, and then I know it's a painful ideal that we might have to make some of these decisions in the short term if we're going to save the community in the long term. It's not that simple, but it is just that simple. Because I remember what was it, just the other day you asked me why we have such a hard time addressing trauma. Well, the thing is, it's too close to home. We can't sort it out, right? When you've got an environment or a society that's been traumatizing you, and you rather focus on that society only, but you ignore your humanity. Like, why is it you look? Why the difficulty of fact that you have a community, at least parts of our community, especially the ones with American slavery in it, that they've been dealing with trauma from day one.
Right.
And we've been doing our resiliency routine from day one. You know, no matter how bad you treat us, we're going to still prevail on the other end, right? And no community is supposed to just roll with the punches and be resilient without finding some way to recover. And you can't recover from something that you deny because you're embarrassed by the outcomes, right? And you've been conditioned to, because you played these mind games with yourself, that I am emotionally stronger than my counterpart, right? And I can handle more than my counterpart, and they're not going to beat me down. Well, that might be fine, I guess, physically, and that ain't even true. But when we talk about emotionally and mentally as a human being, this is stuff has got to catch up with you. And then when it eases and oozes, and now it's past oozing, just a big old waterfall, the repercussions of continuous trauma, not having ways to address the trauma because you can't trust the people who come up with the systems to address the trauma. And it's in your family, right?
Right.
And you feel like you have no repercussions. So if I involve the system historically, especially back in the day, if I involve the system, they're going to make it worse, right? They're not going to help me make it better. They're going to make it worse. And that was the way it was.
Right.
But again, say, for example, let's say I don't want to turn in my family member or whatever for whatever they're doing, or don't want to have somebody else intervene. But I'll even get punished when I say, okay, I'm not gonna do nothing to you, but I'm gonna get away from you, and I'm not gonna have anything to do with you. I would get punished for that. How dare you? You think you better than us?
Punished by the family of the community.
And why? What you mean you're gonna say no to me? You know, I suffered this and I suffered that, but you always in trouble. You know, I mean, I was just having a conversation with a person the other day is about why is it, you know, like the young woman was talking about codependency, and she was talking about, you know, my family, they're always coming to me, and you know, and they'll borrow money, but they never give it back. And then she made the statement, you know, I guess, you know, I am the only stable one in the family. I said, why do you need to suffer for being stable? And I see it all the time. You the stable one in the family, and then you get guilted because you ain't helping unstable people.
Well, if you don't help them, you're a sellout. You sold out.
Well, but that's the other information that I'm coming up with is you got especially Black women who have spent their time taking care of everybody, and then when they get to an age of retirement, they don't have nothing for them.
Sounds like Kevin Samuels.
They don't have nothing for them.
Yeah.
You know, we ain't even talking about the grandmothers who weren't working because they were taking care of grandkids of family members, either because they were dealing with drugs or they were in prison and those kind of things. And then you get around, their Social Security ain't that much because they don't have no outside work history. Or the fact that, you know, the few of us who did have some kind of pension or whatever, and COVID didn't help it none, that we cast some of them suckers out to help other family members, right? And and that's not a good or bad thing. It's just that it's just looking at those spaces where we get caught up in because of not knowing how to deal or with the trauma, not having a honest conversation about how that trauma looks like, what it looks like in the family, what it looks like in the community, and the responses. So what we're seeing with the young people, and we've been starting to see this for a long time, is the festering of not addressing that in a healthy way.
Right.
Now, granted, we're talking about addressing trauma in a community that's traumatized and still feel under attack, for that matter, right? And and it is not fair that you, as a community, you have to do that. But again, our unique circumstances, like we will brag about our unique circumstances when we think it's going to elevate us. But there's a good and bad about being in unique trauma circumstances as we are, that there's some unique things and skills that we have to develop that we haven't been able to develop because we keep holding on to old back in the day behavior and understandings, while the world has evolved around us, and how our trauma has festered and became even more of a cancer in our community, right? When we know that if you don't go to the doctor and you don't address that early lump, that eventually, or you use the instead of going to the doctor, you go find you some salve to put on it, and the salve is, let me entertain myself, let me laugh myself away, let me dance myself away, let me sing myself away. But hey, and then when the lump gets bigger, instead of you addressing the lump, you go get you some clothes to hide the lump on your neck. So now all you're doing is wearing turtlenecks, right? And then when it gets so bad and you have to do something about it, you don't know what to do about it. And then if you go to the doctor, they don't know what to do about it because it's all new. And we're there, right? We're there. We're at a critical juncture in our community. We're at a critical juncture in society, period. But we're definitely at a critical juncture in our community where we have to make some real serious choices that are counter to what we call culture.
Yep. We're farther down the tunnel. One more clip before we close out, because I think this really highlights what you're saying. So if you want to pull that one up, I'll get it going here. So I'm not even gonna tee it up. I'm just gonna roll it.
Since a Florida teacher is recovering after being brutally beaten inside the classroom by a student. That student, only 5 years old. The teacher found damn near catatonic.
That student is now at the center of a criminal investigation.
We just heard that the teacher was really hurt.
Accused of attacking a teacher so brutally, she was taken to the hospital. Police say the incident began when two students in a special needs classroom began throwing things around and at teachers, along with flipping the chairs.
This is not the first time that this has happened at this school, in this classroom. I feel like there needs to be the proper support. This is a special needs class. However, they're not equipped to deal with things like this.
This mother says her child is in the same classroom and other students have been attacked as well, even saying one student went home with a black eye recently.
You continuously get this from one student, two student. It's an issue, and somebody needs to be held accountable. The parents need to be held accountable. The district needs to be held accountable. They dropped the ball. There needs to be somebody held accountable for what happened to that teacher.
When police arrived at the school last Wednesday morning, they say the teacher was sitting on the ground against the wall on one side of the room, appearing in a faint state. Others had to help hold her up as she was clearly weak and dazed. She then began coughing and dry heaving. The report says the teacher was able to blink and breathe regularly, but at no point was able to vocally respond or show signs of a response.
It's just really sad. It's sad. It is heartbreaking. She is a sweet teacher. When I say, like, I trust this woman with my child. That's a second mom. You know what I'm saying? I trust her with my child. Amazing woman. And it's really, it has me so distraught that something like this can happen to her.
Now, that teacher has since been released from the hospital and did suffer a concussion. Police say while the child is still being investigated for possible aggravated assault with hands, fists, and feet, it's unlikely he'll be criminally prosecuted.
What kind of little super babies do we have? 5 years old. Woo, man. Sam, beat the child care provider really bad. Five and a 4-year-old. Apparently, the teacher got jumped. I'm not laughing at. I'm only laughing because this just is so ridiculous. Like what? Like, can you believe this? Can't even say it.
Yeah, I can believe it. You know,
Man.
and the reason I can believe it is you know, they said it was a special ed class, so that kind of thing. And then, you know, you got this black mama saying, evidently the black mama know which child it was or which children it was, and that they've had a problem with this child or these children for a minute, to the point where they're attacking other kids, right? And so what do you do with that? When do you do with that when you got zero suspension? And I'm not saying that's that's necessarily an answer, but what do you do with that? You know, what do you do with that when the other kids are probably terrorized about being in the school or being in the class with this individual? You know,
Right.
what we call extreme bullying, right? You know, where you're to the point where you 5 and you ain't got no problem attacking the teacher.
Right.
How dare you tell me to stop throwing stuff in the class, right? Again, you know, what will happen is folks who can afford it are going to take their kids out of the school, which means because of the way we fund schools by tax-paying money, you ain't going to have enough money to pay the folks to do the work, right? It goes along with what we're looking at here in Minneapolis in the teacher strike. Part of the strike for the first time is they're asking for more money for the teacher supports.
Right. Because it's gotten that bad.
Right.
And they want better pay for the support staff. They want more mental health services for the kids. The strike, to a certain extent, is about helping improve the environment, because the environment does not meet the demand of these students, and a lot of these schools are out of control.
Yeah, and again, we got to find some creative ways to deal with this, because again, now that we have this enlightenment about therapy, enlightenment about trauma, and enlightenment about mental health, we can't wait until we have enough therapists. We can't wait, and we got to come up with some creative ways to get in here and do stuff. You know,
Absolutely.
I know my focus has been primarily doing group work. And then, you know, doing group work, and then folks who are ready going into, you know, individual therapy, because not everybody's ready to do individual therapy.
Right.
You know, if I can get you to start having real conversation about trauma in a group, over time, you might not need more than the group, but if you do go to individual therapy, you'll know why I'm in individual therapy. You'll go in with the idea of what I want to talk about, which and over time you'll take up less of the time of the therapist, so that therapist can be available for other people. That's a model that I've in a small sample size I found that can work, right? Especially for folks who are new to this game, around what is trauma and what is normal, what's not normal, right? You know, because a lot of the trauma in the community has become normal. And you're telling me that what I've been doing all this time ain't normal. That's the other reason we push back, right? You telling me what I've been doing and what my mama doing, my grandmama and them did is not normal, right? When you say you have suffered trauma and these are signs, and some of them signs is out of my family. I can see it vividly out of my family. So the approach got to be more open. It's like, from the standpoint, I understand, but at this time you might need to make some other choices.
Right.
You know, the whole term around dysfunctional. There had always been, you function the way you could best function in the environment that you thought that you needed to live in. Right?
Yeah, survival.
Yeah. And so now, if you want something different, this is what this means. We ain't gonna spend a whole lot of time talking about how bad everybody else was, because they did the best they could. That was the one. If I didn't learn any other lessons in doing my work, was that one. So it's about that time.
Ooh.
Any last thoughts?
My final thought is, I agree with you. We have to get a lot more creative with our strategies, but we also have to take into account the current culture that is being presented in all these strategies. If we come with a bunch of feel-good ideas to everything, we're not going to be able to assist the way that we need to. Because right now we are in a danger zone. When we got kids who are going to school with 30-round clips and like it's nothing, and they're just in the school building, that is extremely dangerous. And like you talked about earlier, there are kids who just want to learn. They're not even on that, but they have to survive within that. They have to navigate that every day.
And then what happens? But see what happens to some of them, then they think they have to carry a gun, right? Don't want to, but think they have to carry a gun just to be able to be in the space they're trying to learn in.
It's a vicious cycle. So whatever strategies we come up with, I hope that we're able to be honest about where we're currently at, because right now it's bad. We have 5-year-olds attacking teachers and damn near putting them, killing them. I mean, this lady was beat up pretty bad, all the way up to middle schoolers chasing coaches, to all these things. It's unfortunate. These are just the things that we just showing. I mean, there's stuff that doesn't get reported on the news that happens all the time. So take care of the babies. They need our help. They need us. Yeah, that's what I'll close out on. Any final thoughts from you?
No, that's good with me.
All right, folks, we're going to wrap up another installment of the Healing Brothers Presents. It is time to deal with the pain. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, share it on Facebook with all your friends, and we'll be back next week with another episode. Peace.